have time for one more question, and we're moving it in a little different direction because it is AIDS week. The question is, why are homosexuals still being discriminated against when it comes to donation of blood, plasma, and sperm when HIV and AIDS infection has been attributed to majority to African American women? So this is more of an opinion question than a
historical fear.
Yeah, there's two lines of questions. One, they're not in England, Ireland, and Wales. Last year, England, Ireland, and Wales dropped the ban on gay men donating blood. However, there is still a one-year deferral. What that means is that you have to say when you go up to give blood that you have not had sex without a condom for a 12-month period with another man. And so I know that, so there is that John Kerry also, and someone else floated a bit of legislation in Congress against this, but it hasn't moved. There's like 64 legislators have signed on. One from Tennessee, Cohen, who is from Memphis, signed, but there's a long way to go on that.
I think a big thing that has to do with it is just a lack of public education on the issue. We saw senators going around telling people that AIDS is a man who's a woman.
Oh, yeah.
We saw children who believe that AIDS is created through homosexual sex. Like the lack of public education on this stuff, like it's not covered in any sex ed class. I remember we learned what AIDS was, we learned that it was bad, but that wasn't the most we ever talked about it. Like it's still taboo in our society.
Pat mentioned the historical aspect of it. I remember when AIDS first hit the national scene, and there was such fear. There were radical suggestions that we deport and isolate men with AIDS, the gay cancer.
Could you be in the same room with someone?
Yeah, these were real.
Yeah.
And so I think there's that legacy.
I also have a question about the mention of African American women. I would like to know what the statistics are. That my understanding is that the number of new cases among African American women, I mean, they are sort of the new cases recently, but I don't really understand these statistics. And was this your question, Jake? Was this your project?
No, the individual guest I cannot be here tonight.
Oh, okay.
I
I
recently
think
saw
I've read that it's the fastest growing,
that's the fastest
but
growing
not
demographic.
necessarily that it is
The
that
largest-
African American women are the largest majority of
That
people living with
that
HIV.
sounds reasonable to me.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard too.
Yeah.
A lot of that is attributed to how in like black communities being like gay is not okay, so men will have sex with men, of course, without condoms and everything, and then bring it back to
And
their
not
girlfriends.
tell.
Yeah. There was this Planned Parenthood, I went and I did this whole information session on it, and they focus heavily on how it affects African American women. It's more that it's the fastest growing. Like right now, it's still not the largest group who currently has HIV infections or AIDS, but it's for new cases. Also for new cases, the amount of young people with new cases of HIV, that's continually growing, and they're becoming one of the fastest groups because of no proper education. People don't realize that you can get an HIV infection from heterosexual sex. And another reason that women are growing number of that is that during heterosexual sex, it is much easier for a woman to get the infection during the sex than the man partner.
I thought it was really, excuse me, I thought it was really interesting to find out, and I just found this out recently, and I've given blood before and I've never noticed, I don't know, I guess there's so many questions, but they also ask you if you're a woman, if you've ever had sex with a man, who's had sex with a man? And if the answer is yes, you can't give blood, and I thought that was so strange, but I had never noticed that before. But I mean, it's almost like there's such a stigma and people are so scared of it that like one step further will use women, you know.
Do they ask if a woman, if she's had sex with a man who's an intravenous drug user? Do they ask her if she is an intravenous drug user?
Yes, yeah.
Good.
There are so many questions. But they don't ask, like, they don't ask you, I mean, as far as I know, they don't ask you if you're a woman who has sex with women, or if you're a woman who, I mean, just, I don't know, it's just kind of.
That would be low risk.
Very low.
Right.
Yeah,
But still, they don't ask you, have you had sex with a man who has AIDS without a condom? They don't ask you that.
Like, they don't ask about your heterosexual sex
Exactly. What's
practices.
They only make it about homosexuality,
Yeah.
male homosexuality. It's never like she
The
said.
questions are fascinating. They really are. I mean, you can be a completely promiscuous heterosexual person, and that's completely another sentence.
And so when it then becomes about homosexuality, not about behaviors, not about socioeconomic conditions, not about prison, not about constraints, it becomes about a way to break.
They exponentially all of the.
They also ask that like on doctors.
The thing about it is too, on those questions, depending on how bad the person needs money, they're not gonna be totally honest.
They could lie, yeah.
I've given plasma, and you know about half the people there probably either used intravenous drugs or
Well, I know that.
traded. I'm not pointing fingers at them. I'm just saying that if you're really broke and you need to give plasma that day, you might lie on some of them questions.
Correct.
I'm sure people do.
In 2002, I was in Nassau County, New York, Long Island, and 50 18-year-olds gave blood. 5 came back HIV positive, and it was all intravenous drug usage. And they had no idea that sharing needles could spread HIV and AIDS.
You know, I actually think the only way to get rid of the cultural baggage that the word AIDS carries or HIV is to change the name. The medical term for what is now AIDS or HIV positive. We did it with STIs. We used to call them diseases. So, yeah, I mean, to get rid of the stigma. I mean, that was the purpose of calling them STIs now. So I think that AIDS and HIV need to have a similar kind of change. Something fancy, something to hide it.
I mean, it would also help if there would be more like needle exchange programs. I mean, originally, around the time the whole Clinton scandal went down, it was going to be voted on so there would be government-funded needle exchange programs. But, you know, that fabulous Newt Gingrich, said this wonderful statement basically saying, who cares if they're getting AIDS, they use drugs. Like, if you use drugs, you're subhuman, basically. And because the whole Clinton scandal happened, people forgot about the needle exchange program. They weren't paying attention to it. They weren't rallying for it. And it didn't pass. And people, they're not willing to do needle exchange programs because of the whole idea of, like, they use drugs. Why would we want to help them and keep them safe?
Right, it's a way of getting rid of part of the population.
And it's not just like, I was trying to split up Planned Parenthood the other day, and they don't give, some of them don't give away free condoms anymore. Like a lot of places that used to give away free condoms, people are now charging small fees, or they're not doing that service anymore.
Yeah, it's probably
Our own student health clinic, anyone?
Yeah, there was subsidies for contraceptive pills that went away a decade ago. Used to be a lot cheaper for students.